Hello, this is Eric McPherson, CEO of Dawson Tire and Wheel. Got John Elder, our VP of Sales, with me here today.
Hey, Eric.
Today what we'd like to do is spend a little time going over how to properly evaluate tires on ag equipment when you're trading it in. It's really important, isn't it, John, in the machine world?
You know, it really is. When you talk about trading in a machine, a tractor, or combine, anything really, for years there's been oil scans and fluid scans to know how the engine's performance has been and transmission's performance. But, there's really not been a lot of focus on tires. And tires are, what, Eric, probably the third most expensive wear component on a tractor today?
Yeah, they would be, and not getting any cheaper, are they?
Not getting any cheaper by a long shot.
So, I think we're doing this at the request of a lot of equipment dealers because they've come to us asking us to help them value equipment. And it's as you said, it's a pretty big deal because if you misvalue the tires on a 9R four-wheel drive tractor, you can miss the value of that tractor $25,000-$30,000, can't you?
Right, and the fact is, machines availability is getting tighter, and the values are going up, and so you don't have as much room to play. You don't have as much margin in the trade typically. So I don't know too many dealers are going to want to eat a $20 or $25 or $30,000 hit to the value of a tractor.
No, that's right, and we often laugh, but up until this point, it's been a guess, hasn't it?
It has, Eric. It's really funny because when I talk to the sales guys on our team, when we're evaluating what the pictures that come in on trades, it's always, they stick a couple of fingers in the tread to try to get an idea of how much is left. But, from the dealers that I've been talking to, it really is. A lot of it is just simply a guess.
And a drive-by guess at that. And we even had a guy, didn't we, took a picture of his credit card.
Yeah, unfortunately, he just took the front of the credit card. If he'd have taken the front and the back, it probably would have been more useful for us.
Yeah, right. So just specific to that point though, if you have a 9R John Deere tractor, it's got 710, 70, 42 Michelin's on it. Those tires are in the neighborhood of plus over $4,000 a piece today, and if those tires are actually 40% and my guy in the field is guessing them at 85%, it's not hard to have a $2,500 per tire miss, and then you take that times 8. That's what we're talking about in specifics, isn't it?
Yeah. So you can see, it may not be that big a deal to miss one, but when you're trading in a tractor and you've got 8s, you've got 8 of them, or even worse, if you've got triples, that you can add up very quickly. So that kind of brings up the next point, which is, the value of ag tires over the years. And Eric, you've been in the tire business for longer than I have, for sure. So how do we compare values of tires from yesterday to today?
Well, as everything, they've all gone up.
True statement.
But not only just the value, but we all know the size of equipment, the capacities of the tires have had to increase, and I often laugh, but a big tire on a combine was a 28 L26 back when I started in the tire business, and I remember some of the first combine tires I ever fixed out of a service truck, and those were big tires, and today that's the back tire.
Right.
So
that's the steer tire.
Right.
Jeez.
So it's they're going up and up and up, and it's you can't, with the size changes and the value of the equipment, the value of the tires on that equipment, you can't just assume that something 5 or 10 years ago is going to give you an accurate answer today, can you?
No, because like you say, everything's changing, and when we talk about the value of a tire, right? What's a tire worth to us? Because we kind of have a North American market, and the value may be different for us than it would be for a local dealer that may only have a fairly small geographic footprint, right? So it's really difficult. I think year over year, you really can't say that is this tire going to be as valuable in 2 years as it was today? The answer is probably no.
Some other things that have affected the industry is just we talked about the size of equipment, but the other thing's the speed of the equipment, and to base any tire values on, again, something 10 years ago. Tires are being built drastically different today than they were 30 or 40 years ago because of the need of bigger, faster, more weight capacity, all of those things, and with the way this equipment's changed.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something that's really key. Not everybody kind of eats, sleeps, and breathes tractor and tires, agricultural tires. I mean, that's all we really do. I mean, our job is ag tires. So our guys are really the experts when it comes to, what's the speed, what's the load rating, what's the speed rating, what is it that you need to be safely operating that piece of equipment with doing what you want it to do in the soil conditions that you have.
No, that's good. So back to kind of why we're here, John, the little background on values of tires, but education for our dealers, for people in the field is really the key point, isn't it? What are the basic steps we need to know when I'm going to put a value on a tire or put value on a piece of equipment that obviously has tires on it?
Yeah, right. I think that's, the education is key. You're right. I think the first thing you start out with is really simple. What size is it? And how do you read the sidewall of a tire?
Yeah, and you might say, well, that's intuition for us because that's what we do every day, but it's a challenge. And Dawson's got some pretty good resources, even some videos on how to read the sidewall of a tire. So I think that's good. Size is the most important thing. Then what's the brand? Because I might have a 480 80R 50 tire, but the value of that piece of equipment changes based on the brand, doesn't it?
Sure it does. Whether it's a Goodyear, a Michelin, a Trelleborg, or Firestone. I mean, the count goes on and on. There's kind of the tiered levels, right? You've got kind of the top tier tires, and then you've got some others, some that we've never even heard of, that you can come in and shoot. What's worse, Eric, is when you got to take a row crop tractor comes in with duals, and you've got 4 tires on the back, 3 of which are Michelin's, and the fourth is some off-name brand that you've never heard of.
Right. And that changes the value of the tractor, doesn't it?
Sure does. Sure does.
And the other thing, just to point up, also, I might have all Michelin 480, 80R 50, but there's a difference between a regular and a IF or VF. And that can change the value of that tire, again, up another $1,000 a tire in some instances.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say the next one would be the tread depth, right? And it's not just the tread depth. I mean, we joked earlier about the credit card and putting the fingers, but you really need to know what is that tread depth. But then you've also got to know, well, what was it when it was new? Right. And where do you find that stuff, Eric?
I have an answer for that, John. Well, up until Dawson's great idea of TreadSure, which is an app that is now available on your Android or Apple phone, where you found that stuff was in the tire manufacturer data books. And I've spent a long time around tires, and even I still have trouble finding that information. So I got real familiar years ago with the Firestone data books. And so I knew them really well. But then the other day I was looking for some Goodyear LSW information. Found it very hard to find. I was looking for some METOS information, and that was a different story again. So the tread depth is part of the data that is in the spec books that the tire manufacturers now have online. Good luck finding it.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest part. If I'm a salesman at a dealership, and I'm trying to figure out what that is, that's why they guess, right? That's the ultimate reason as to why they guess and say, oh, it's a 60% tire, is because frankly, they just don't know. They don't know how to do it, and they don't know where to do it. Again, back to the education is key.
Right, and we know, don't we, that how to measure tread depth. So, we're providing a lot of tread depth gauges. We've got a video out on how to measure the tread depth, which you can find online or from any of our sales team. But again, I measure the tread depth. Now I know how to do that, and it came back at 30 seconds. And what you say is a good point that, well, I don't know what that tractor had new. Was it 30 seconds? And back to the information on the sidewall, that might have been an R2 tire, and 30 seconds is less than half tread. Or it might be an R1 Goodyear Optitorque, and 30 seconds is 98%.
Or it could have been an R1W.
Right, which is somewhere in between. Right. So, really important to know the tread depth, accurately know the tread depth. And again, we've got tread depth gauges and an app that you can put all that information in and find it out.
By the way, both of which are available at TreadSure.app. So if you're looking for the app, you can go to TreadSure.app and download it there. And there's also a place where you can request tread depth gauges as well.
Something else to think about is the condition of the tire. You might have a tire that's 95% tread, but has been run over corn stubble and corn stalks, and tires chewed up really bad. That affects the value of the tire and the value of the equipment. I was looking at some tires the other day. They were 90%, 870 38s, and cords showing in the area where the tire had run over the row of corn. Right. And the tire's junk.
Yeah, I think that's probably, everybody in the ag industry, it's kind of been the buzz topic, stubble damage, right? As the corn gets stiffer stalks and cropping practices change, tires get wider, machines get bigger, all of that, and people will say, oh, it's just moderate stubble damage or it's light stubble damage. But at the end of the day, stubble damage is stubble damage. And we get asked to take trades in on stuff that's stubble damaged all the time. And when we ask the salesman, well, is this something that you would accept on a tractor that you're going to deliver to your customer? And the answer is no. So
again, value of tires and value of equipment. Other things to look for, weather checking, cuts, those sort of things. So,
and then probably the last thing is, what's the cost of a new tire? What's the current cost for this tire in new condition? That's kind of the last thing. So you've got all the information and you say, well, what would it take to buy this new?
Right. And that helps you understand, if I've got a 8,000 hour tractor, 75% rubber on it's pretty good. If I've got a 200 hour tractor, 75% is probably not good, and it's going to hurt the value of that piece of equipment.
Right. So Eric, back when I first started with Dawson Tire and Wheel, one of the things that you and I talked about was the life cycle of a tire, because you were trying to help me understand how we trade, what we take in. So we've kind of got a slide on the life cycle of a tire, and would you mind just kind of helping walk through that a little bit?
Yep. So tires are an asset to a piece of equipment generally if they're 70% to 100% tread, and that's where we like to be if we're trading it in. I think that's where the dealerships would like to be. They're new tires, they're new takeoff tires. They've got good tread, and the condition is good. Like I said, it might be a challenge if that's a low hour tractor to have it down to 70%, but those tires generally have value in a trade-in situation. Then there's those tires in midlife, kind of like you and me, John. We run at 40 to 70% most of the time, right?
I'm lucky if I'm getting to 70, that's for sure.
Yeah, but that's the kind of the midlife of the tires, and we don't actually want them as trade-ins, but we don't see them as a liability. Right. They would have value on the open market. You could throw them on an online auction. Somebody's going to pay you for them. Dawson's probably not generally, unless they're a super popular size or there's a shortage. But that 40 to 70% range, you got to watch it, because you might think they have a lot of value, but then there's the under 40% tread, which actually they're going to cost somebody to get rid of them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's those are the ones I think of as, everybody's bought a set of tires for their pickup truck or for their car, and what do you have to pay? I mean, it's not, they're not going to give you money for the tires you're taking off. It's what you got to pay a fee,
right,
to get rid of them.
Disposal fee, and that's again back to why it's important to know the tread depth, because if I've got 8 or 12 tires on a tractor and our disposal fees, John, are $50, $75 a tire, and that's what it's costing us to get rid of that stuff.
And that's not going down either.
No. So it might be more than the fact that I misvalued the piece of equipment. Now I have to pay somebody to get rid of these tires that somebody guessed were 75% tread. Kind of a messy situation.
Yeah, that can get pretty ugly pretty quickly.
We have a slide on here, again, back to the condition. The picture on the left is, as we were talking about earlier, the stubble damage. You can see clearly where that tire ran over the row of corn. And again, that's conditions that cause trouble when you're trying to properly value your equipment.
Right. And I mean, that's a good example of a tire. I mean, that's a perfect example of a tire with, I would call that pretty severe stubble damage. And who's going to want that?
Right. Somebody might want it for a scab or to get a little flotation on a dual, but that's going to be it. And we're not going to pay you for it when you want to trade it in. We're probably going to charge you to get rid of it.
Right.
And then the tire on the right, again, is you can see that tire's almost new tread. You can still see the writing on the end of the lug there.
And you can see it was a 12.4 something.
Yep. But tire's pretty weather checked.
Yeah. I mean, you can see all the little cracks in between the lugs. Yeah, it's been sitting out.
It's what you need to pay attention to, that tire, a tire company isn't going to pay you money to trade that tire in. They're going to charge you money to get rid of it.
Right.
So then we have the video in here of how to read the sidewall of a tire that we were talking about earlier. So hopefully that answers some of the questions that we were talking about earlier. This is Eric from Dawson Tire and Wheel. We're going to talk today about the information that's found on the sidewall of a tire. First, obviously, is the brand. This tire is a Goodyear. Then there's the model, which is Super Traction Radial. Then you come down to the size. This one says 380 80R38. First numbers, the width of the tire in millimeters. Generally today, that's always going to be a metric number in millimeters. Go back a few years, or some sizes that would be a correlative to a 14.9. You might see a 14.9 R38. That's the width in inches. Then the 80 is an aspect ratio. So what that is basically saying is that the sidewall is 80% of the width. Then there's the R38, which is the rim diameter in inches. So again, 380 80 R38. Other information is, here's a 142A8. That is the load index is the 142. Then the A8 is the speed rating. Then there's also a 142B. That means if you go at a faster speed, you will carry less weight. So the 142, again, you're going to have to look in your data book to know what the load capacity is based on your speed and in inflation. But 142 is the load index. Then the A8 is the speed rating. Then there's this other information which gives you your max load. So this is your 25 mile an hour, which correlates to the A8. This gives you your maximum load and also your maximum inflation of the 35 PSI. Depending on your application and your load, you don't necessarily have to run 35 PSI. That's the maximum inflation. Also, you will find on one side of the tire the serial number, or the DOT number it's often called. So this is a CF2412. The CF is the plant that it was made in. That happens to be a Goodyear plant, obviously. Then the 24 is what week it was manufactured, and the 12 is what year. So DOT number in this tire says it was manufactured in the 24th week of 2012. So that's the information you can find on the sidewall of a tire. Any more questions, give us a call at Dawson Tire and Wheel, 888-604-3403.
And then I think the next video, this video is how to measure tread depth. And I think this is one that's really impactful, Eric, because, you know, read the sidewall, vastly important. We talked about the education. But what people really don't know is, how do I measure tread depth, and what do I need to do? And so I think this next video is a very impactful video, probably something that every ag salesperson that deals with tires needs to watch.
Yep, I would totally agree with that, John. This is Eric from Dawson Tire and Wheel. So here we are going to measure the tread depth of an ag tire with our TreadSure powered by Dawson Tire tread depth gauge. You take the thing out, put it in here, then we're going to come over here and we're going to measure here and get right at 28-30 seconds. What we try to do is get 3 measurements on both sides of the tire. So third and a third. We'll come over here and do it down here. Capture it again. This one measures 30 seconds. There are times when lugs are far apart where you have to measure in between 2 lugs in the center of the tire, and that's okay too. So you can see that is a little different measurement. That's 30 seconds. So we feel the most accurate is when you get to across the lug, a third of the way in and a third of the way in. So again, we have another 28-30 seconds. And with that, we're going to use the 28-30 seconds as the tread depth measurement. Pull out the app, we open the TreadSure app. We'll just use the tread calculator here. We'll look at this tire. This happens to be a Goodyear. So we'll find Goodyear as the brand. Then we'll select the model, which here is a Super Traction Radial. So we go down here and find in the Goodyear, the Super Traction Radial. Then it should pull up the sizes that's available in. So this tire happens to be a 380 80R38. So we'll go down here and find the 380 80R38. There is a condition slider which we can use if you use the evaluation form of poor, fair, good. We'll call this tire good. Then we'll scroll over to the 28-30 seconds. You slide it across, and that shows that this Goodyear tire has 46% tread remaining. So we'll finish that one. You also have where you can do an evaluation form, enter in your tractor that you want to do it on, and that will give you the tire position you might want to add. So you can select a location for the tire, say it's the outside, rear, go through the same process. Select the brand, and that will add it to a form that you can email to yourself. And that's how you measure tread depth on the tire and use your free TreadSure tread depth app to understand what percentage of tread depth is left. Go check it out. Again, it's free, available on Apple and Android devices. TreadSure, powered by Dawson Tire and Wheel. Then we have one other video in here, just some other factors to consider when you're valuing a piece of equipment. We're going over what kind of tread is on it, whether it's an R1 or an R2 or an R3 or an R4, different values there. Some of the new tires, they're calling them R14s now. And so just something that we think is educational when you're valuing equipment.
Today I'm looking at a 7330 Premium it's got 18.438 Firestone radial all traction tires on the back. And I wanted to cover the tire markings on the side of a tire and why they matter in a valuation. So in this one, in this case, it's an R1 tire. They do make it in an R1W, and an R1W is going to be worth more money. It's also going to be more expensive when you have to go and replace it. This one's got a 149B load rating. That's the standard for this size of tire in a Firestone, and they do make it in a heavier load rating, so it could be the heavier load rating is always going to be more expensive. Most people are probably familiar by now with IF and VF tires in the harvest applications especially, and IF and VF are always going to be more expensive if something does go wrong with the guy needing to replace one. So this is just something to keep in mind when you're looking at trade evaluations on a piece of machinery, or if you're giving a guy a value on what his equipment's worth. If we look closer on this tire, you see it's got a couple of weather cracks on it. Pretty standard for an old tire like this. It's an 1808 date code, which means it's the 18th week of 2008 is when it was manufactured. So you get a guy come to look at it on your lot, and he'll probably try to chew you down on price a little bit, because they're not deep weather cracks, but they don't look the best, and anything that isn't going to look great is going to get usually noticed by the next customer down the line. If you go here and look at closer to the tread, it's got some weather marks there too. You often see lug cuts or stubble damage, especially in row crop situations, and anything like that is going to knock the value down when you go to resell it. So just make sure you have that built in when you're giving a trade evaluation for it. You see stubble actually worked into the rubber there too. And so another thing you want to look at when you're trading in a tractor or giving an evaluation on it is looking at all the tires that are on a machine. You never know how it's going to affect the value down the road. So in this case, I've got a 14.9R28. This is a Firestone radial all traction FWD. On the other side, it's got a A110 tire. So if you're trying to resell it to a guy that's really picky about his tires, and maybe he's a Firestone fan, had good luck with them, whatever, he's going to want that tire on the left side replaced. If you're going for a guy that's more price conscious, you could probably sell it as is. So you think about all the little things that add up. So one of the things I wanted to touch on, we get a lot of questions on this, is there's a lot of swaps done on these machines. I'm looking at a 5075E utility tractor, and on the row crop side, it doesn't matter as much if you're trading in an 18446 or 408050. There's a lot of customers out there with uses for that. So there's a good chance you won't have to trade the tire size off. It's when you get into this 50 to 150 horsepower range that the tires get a lot more specialized. So you've got the industrials, the R4s, for like a lot of municipalities use them. R3s or turf tires. In this case, it's a radial R1, so a nice riding general utility tire. And then you get the bias R1s, which are a lot cheaper. Then there's new stuff in that market too, like the crossover R14 tires. But what we get questions a lot of times is on the 45s and 65 John Deere tractors like this. They come with 69 28s and a lot of those tractors did across the country. So there's not a huge market for them wherever you try to resell them at. And if you're bringing in a tractor, say from out of the area, or you're trading in a tractor in your area and you've got to switch tire sizes on it, make sure you're doing your legwork ahead of time so you know what the cost of what the next customer wants is going to be, because you might be buying that outright with no trade value in the tires. So just something to keep in mind, especially on the compact and utility stuff.
And then the last video that we have is our introduction to our TreadSure app that we referenced earlier. This video is available actually on the app itself. So if you download the app, and you can click on the hamburger menu button, and it'll have the video on how to properly use TreadSure, or how to use TreadSure to help you gain an insight and education knowledge into what the tire may or may be worth.
We sell ag tires and wheels across North America. TreadSure came about as a result of equipment dealers asking us to help them value tires and wheels correctly. Up until TreadSure, there's been no easy way to look at that tire and know whether it's 90% or 40%. Data books for tire manufacturers are built by tire engineers. They're all online today, but they're hard to find, and none of them are consistent. So what we've tried to do with TreadSure is put all that data in a single place, easily usable, so that anyone that's interested can have access to the data and get what they need to, so they understand what their tires are. If I could say that business is successful, it's been that we've put helping people above anything else. What we're trying to do is bring that spirit of helpfulness that got us where we are to anyone else that can benefit from it. Really easy to use. We think it's pretty intuitive. You just, you download the app, you open it, you can use the tread calculator, or there's actually an evaluation form if you're wanting to save the information with your equipment file and or send it back to the remarketing manager. Just need to know as we said earlier, you need to pop the brand in, manufacturer brand, then the model of the tire will come up. You choose that, then in that model will be the sizes available. You pick that size, put the tread depth in 30 seconds or millimeters, and bingo, you know whether it's 30% or 60%. And what's better yet is it's free. Now, how often do you get that nowadays?
How often do you get something free that's useful like that? The other thing I would like to say on that, we listen to a lot of customers. Some customers just wanted a calculator. Some customers actually wanted an email that could be sent to a sales inspector or a trade evaluator. In that case, you can actually say where the location, whether it's a front, right, inside, left, front, outside, so that you know each specific tire, where it is on the tractor.
Right, and well, on that form you can save up to 12 tires. Enter in whether it's John's 8R350, and so we hope those things are helpful. We thank you all for your time and listening today, and trust you find this educational. With that, I'm signing out. What about you?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate TreadSure.app. When you're looking for a place to download the TreadSure, the TreadSure app, also on TreadSure.app, Eric, we've put some additional resources out there. Some ability to order the tread depth gauges. We put some informational resources out there so that if you're looking for information, that's a great place to go. Otherwise, your best bet is always just call us here at Dawson Tire and Wheel at 888-604-3403, or you can visit us at www.dawsontire.com.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it.